So I've noticed a conversation online around AI replacing software engineers, and I usually see two points on a completely different side of the spectrum. One being that software engineers are going to be completely gone. There's not going to be any reason for companies to hire software engineers. We can start replacing them. And on the other hand, I see people saying, hey, this is not going to happen. You're an idiot. Software engineers are never going to be replaced, or AI is not going to be able to take over. Companies won't be able to replace them. Although I see both sides, they feel very extreme and not very nuanced. So I think there's a nuanced take to be taken here. But first, let me clear up both sides, right? So one that says, hey, we're not going to need any human software engineers. AI will be able to write all the software. Is that possible? That is possible, I think, if we get to artificial superintelligence or artificial general intelligence to the point where it's better than most software engineers, right? At that point, if you build enough integrations, if you give it enough tools to work with, just like we work with them, then yeah, it's possible, right? Devon's maybe kind of getting there. It's at an intern level or maybe below an intern, right? Below a human. It doesn't have access to the same tools that we do. Maybe it doesn't have the same kind of memory that we do. But any kind of growth here will get us there. On the other hand, the other argument is that no, look at these models. They're not very smart. They get lost easily. They don't have the same context. That they can't do the things that we do. It's human ingenuity that takes us to the next level. Software engineers are not going to be replaced with AI. I'm sure there's more points to be made on each side, but that's kind of the crux of it, right? That the models will never be able to get to the point, or not anytime soon will be able to get to the point where they can replace human software engineers. I don't think either one of them are actually correct yet, right? On this side where they're saying no, they can't replace human software engineers, are kind of saying they can't replace them yet, right? Or they won't be able to replace them anytime soon in the next year, because there's a lot of hype around this, and there are CEOs out there saying we've stopped hiring, we don't need to hire any more people, we've actually been shrinking because AI is already taking over some of that workload. Or by next year we're going to have artificial general intelligence, or in 6 months we're going to replace everybody. So of course these group of people are essentially saying no, that's not the case. Well, whereas on the other hand they're saying, okay, fine, we're not there yet, but look at the growth rate of AI, look at the growth rate of these models. We're absolutely going to be there very soon, right? So they're kind of talking about separate things. And the debate is being masked by this fog of hype. I kind of want to clear that up and want to break down a more nuanced take of how I think this plays out and how it's not a zero sum game. Even though we have AI, we're going to coexist with it, and how you need to kind of prepare for it, right? Even if AI starts taking some of the jobs, how you can continue to grow and still have a job, and kind of explain how that all that works, at least from my perspective. So let's jump into this Excalibur. I can kind of walk you through how this is going to go down and how that's really not a big issue, right? It's not as crazy as people are making out to be. They're saying don't learn software engineering, don't go into computer science because it's all going to be over. I want to explain how that's not a very good take at all, right? And my bias comes from software engineering. I have a software engineering background. I've worked at big tech companies and startups, and so yeah, there's a little bit of bias there. But ideally, if AI can write all the software better than I can, I'm happy for it to take my job. That'll be awesome, because then I get to do cooler shit, right? I get to instruct it on what to do. If there's no work to be left to be done, it can do all of it. Okay, then we have an existential crisis. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I don't think we need to worry about that yet, because at that point, I think we're talking about something way crazier. There needs to be significant leaps in technology, in artificial intelligence, in machine learning for that to happen. And maybe OpenAI will crack it. Maybe Anthropic will crack it. Who the fuck knows? But that's not the reality I'm preparing for. I can see the growth rate on models, and I can see the infrastructure change around it. I can see the orchestration that's happening. I can see it improving and how it's going to make us better. And I kind of want to break that down here. So let's jump into the Excalibur draw. So I kind of want to explain this with a graph, right? So assume this is kind of like a chart. This is the y-axis, and we have software engineering skill. This is the skill level, and we'll use this AI as where we're going to put it, okay? So this, let's say, okay, let's remove this. Okay, so AI sits somewhere on this graph right now, okay? It sits somewhere here, all right? Let's say most software engineers, let's break this down, right? Let's make this yellow. Let's bring this here. And let's take this. Let's take this and this. Let's kind of break this down like this. Okay. So let's say this is most software engineers. We'll make them a little bit bigger than beginners. So let's say this is kind of beginner level. This is medium level. And this is slightly better than those. And this is, let's say, the top software engineers in the world. Okay. So we'll call this intern level. Intern, junior, senior, and principal or something. We'll just call them cracked. Okay, so these are cracked. All right, perfect. So AI kind of sits somewhere on this. We can call this even, we can move this up a little bit. Maybe we'll have another one here. All right, below the skill level, we'll just say beginner. Great. So AI sits somewhere on its skill level here. Of course, it has infinite knowledge, right? It has all the entire internet corpus. It has the entire internet corpus encoded within it. So it clearly has a lot of knowledge. It knows more about documentations in different programming languages and whatnot than probably me. What we're talking about here is its ability to get shit done. Okay, where does it sit on here and what happens, right? So we can even call this skill levels, but it's just easier to understand where it sits here. So maybe it's like in its ability to get shit done, it probably sits somewhere here right now. Okay, and as we go up, as AI gets better, it'll be able to replace more and more of these people. Okay, that only makes sense. As its capabilities go up, it can replace some of these people. However, this is a skill level. Okay, we can remove the association of these words from what they mean at a company, but instead they're simply signify a skill level. Okay, so as this goes up, more and more jobs will be replaced, or it simply means that it's less profitable. It makes less sense for a company to spend a bunch of money on an engineer versus spending a bunch of money on a software engineer, right? Paying them hundreds of thousands of dollars, waiting for that engineer to be able to ramp up, right? Ramp up is a huge time. Spend money on recruiting them. It takes a lot of money for companies to recruit people through interviews or paying recruiters and headhunters. It takes a lot of money for companies to onboard these people. The first 2-3 months, your software engineer, especially if you live somewhere here as a junior or lower, you're not going to be that productive for the company. So it makes no sense for them to hire you over an AI agent, perhaps. Okay. However, there actually isn't a ceiling here, right? You can just continue to get better, right? You can just move up here. These people can just up level their skills. They can move up here, right? Of course, this is going to be more time to get better, but it's also augmented with AI. So the timeline to get better is also shorter, but you can just continue to get better. Isn't that awesome? This is an infinite ceiling here. There's infinite value to be made. And of course, there's a lot of arguments to be made around like, how do you get better if you can't get a job? How do you blah, 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 blah? You just get better. You just do things. You just make software. If that's what you want to do, you just make software. You can get really good just writing software. People spend 4 to 5 years in college writing code or doing computer science or software engineering, taking those classes. I'm not saying those classes aren't necessary, but that's a lot of time. You can get to crack level. You can get here. You can get to crack level just by doing your own shit. And you can get better than AI, 100%. Right? You can continue to get better. You can continue to get better with it. So these skills are like, they're pretty stackable. How you use AI is obviously one of the skills, but that's not what I'm talking about. You can just get cracked. You can just do things. This is infinite. Okay, think about this. A company isn't worried if they pay you $200,000, but you make the company $10 million, right? That's some of the companies like Facebook or any of these companies, per employee they make $1 million. Now, obviously, that's not completely correlated, but if you bring so much value to the company, they don't care about paying you $200,000 when you're making them millions of dollars, and they see that, right? It's hard to exactly correlate how much value a software engineer brings to the company's bottom line because it's a little bit abstracted, right? You're building a much bigger product often, but it's clear. It's very clear to see when you have somebody who's cracked and is bringing a lot of value. So you want to be at that place. I've never been worried about job security because I've always brought significant amounts of value outside of just software engineering too, right? It also depends how good of a teammate you are, right? How much can you bring value outside of just software engineering? Because often it's not just companies don't just need code monkeys, right? I can pretty much guarantee you that a lot of value that has been brought is like less than 1,000 lines of core software engineering. So it's not about the code that's being written, it's about everything else around it. Also, they're all pretty important, but the point that I'm trying to make is AI is going to continue to move up, but the ceiling here is infinite. You can just keep getting better. Isn't that awesome? And I think realistically, what can happen here is this is possible. Okay, let's rearrange them back. This is possible here. All right, the AI will be here, and then this crack number can just keep going up, always above AI. And that might be augmented with AI, cracked plus AI, sure. But it's infinite. And perhaps you're misunderstanding this value creation process. It's not a zero sum game. If somebody else wins, let's say AI, doesn't mean you have to lose. You can just keep winning by creating more value. Once you get so good and confident in your skill levels, because you're cracked, it's gonna be you're gonna be less worried about job security. And I see why people are worried, and there's a lot of good arguments to be made. I understand all of them, but this is my perspective on this entire process. This is my perspective on this entire situation, right? I understand that AI is going to continue to keep getting better, right? It's going to move up this hierarchy, and I'm just going to continuously stay above this level, above it, always. Now you can choose to be here, or you can choose to get up here. Software engineering is probably the only field, probably one of the best fields to do this in. There are no guardrails. There are none. You can just do things. You can just write code. You can read code. Some of the best code out there is open source. You can just go to GitHub and just read it. You can just contribute to it. You can solve your own problems. It's so incredible. You want to make a competitor to any unicorn startup out there, you can just do it. You want to make a competitor to Airbnb? You can. You want to make a competitor to Facebook? You can. Of course, there's a lot of other things around it that are difficult to actually do, but from a software perspective, you can just do it. You want to make a competitor to Vercel? You want to wrap AWS? Go for it. You want to train your own LLMs? Difficult. Very difficult. But can you do it? Yeah. Get a couple of your homies together. A lot of code is just free out there. You have to scrape a lot of data. You have to figure out all kinds of different training pipelines. You might need a few $1,000s. You can raise money. You can just raise money. Money is cheap. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. That's my nuanced take of how this AI is going to continue to get better. And yes, if you don't keep up, it will replace you. So just keep up. Get better. Get cracked. Use AI. The learning rate has exponentially gone up with AI, actually. Right? It hallucinates. Of course, it has drawbacks. Right now, we have 5 million context LLMs already there, right? 2 to 5 million. 2 million in the last Gemini model. I don't know what the current one is, but I know the 5 million context models are in training right now. They're coming. And man, the higher the context, the more information it can fit. So you're worried about it hallucinating some kind of documentation. It's just going to have all of it in context. You're worried about it not being able to correlate files from different parts of your code base. It's just going to have all of them in context. It's going to be expensive, but it's doable, and we're going to find more ways to make it efficient. So don't believe this idea that this is never going to be able to replace people. It will, right? But it's only replacing the people that are below it in skill level and in being a better teammate, being able to provide value to the company, right? That's the trade you're making with any company. You're saying, hey, here's my time and my brain. And they're saying, here's some money. And as long as the amount of money they're paying you is significantly less than the value you bring them to the entire corporation, to the entire team, they'll continue to make that trade because it's profitable for them. And that's all a company is. Anyways, that's my thoughts. I'll talk to you guys later.